Hey everybody, it's Diesel from Imagine Your Goddess. It's been a while, and I'm happy to be the first deck profile for our channel for Luck and Logic. Uh, I brought my Lucky Chicago Luck and Logic box with me. We got this as a specialty item in Chicago Regionals. And today I will be showing you a mana deck. Later on I will show you Tamaki and Chloe respectively. But for today, we are focusing in on blue, and under blue, I play mana. So let's go ahead and just get started with the gates. I play 2 copies of Gate 1, which is the get 3 stock. 2 copies of Gate 2, which is the get a stock and draw a card. 2 copies of Gate 3, which is get a stock and get a member from your drop zone, put it back in your hand. I play 2 copies of Gate 4, which is when it's destroyed, you get a stock, and if you have 4 or more destroyed gates, tap all your opponent's creatures. I have 1 copy of Gate 5, which is when it's destroyed, gain a stock, and if you have 4 or more destroyed gates, mobilize a 4 or less from your drop zone and do it without paying its cost. And then I have 1 copy of Gate 9, which is when this gate is destroyed, put the top card of your deck into your stock zone, and then choose an opponent's level zone card and rest it. So it's level zone drain. I named them by their gates and not by their names because all gates do the same things from grouping to grouping when they have the same gate number. So there's no point in giving you any more information than what their number is. So those are my gates. I would probably run more copies of Gate 9 if I had it. There are other gates that I don't have yet, such as 7 and 8. So I would like to see what those do and then figure out which ones I'd run. But I run with what I have right now. Talking about paradoxes, I run 4 copies of Stardust Archery and 4 copies of Astro Step. Now, Astro Step falls into the org groupings that I call boosters, because when they're played on the field, you choose a member from your world, or if the person you're playing is a member of the world you're supposed to be playing, that person also gets 2,000 power. That way, if this gets flipped over by a paradox change, you still got 2,000 power out of the situation. So I call it a booster. Stardust Archery is my other paradox. As all paradoxes do, they give all members on your side of the field a plus to soul, and they turn it into an aura battle. But when you play this one, you can tap a mana in your level zone to look at the top 2 cards of your deck, ditch 1 into the discard pile, and put the other one in your hand. So it gives you some options on draw power for the cost of a mana in your level zone, which is pretty good. All of my cards in deck work well with Astro Step or Stardust Archery. You'll see that later on when I talk about them. The best thing that I can suggest when it comes to paradoxes is try to play creatures that complement your paradoxes. Members, you know what I mean. So that is my paradox grouping. Let's talk about tactics. Okay, now I haven't fully gotten the hang of this game in terms of deck building. And from what I understand, a lot of people are having the same problem, and I will go into that in another video. But right now, I run 4 paradoxes, and or 4 tactics, and I think it stays good between 4 and maybe 8, depending on what your deck is. I wouldn't go much higher than that, because then you're risking not getting members when your opponent does beat you in battles, which is a little much. Also, mana has the ability to draw and cycle, which is a magic term, which means like drop and draw. So options become available through using of cycling. So I run 2 copies of Word for Advice, 1 copy of Mission Success, and 1 copy of Quiet Petition. Word of Advice is when you play it from your hand, you can pay 1, you gain a limit, 5,000 power, and you take the top card of your deck and put it face up in the battle zone. So usually my deck is full of a lot of members, so it'll probably give me like a member, another 5,000, maybe 2 aura, whatever. But it's something that plays from immediacy, so you don't want to have too many cards that you have to play from your hand in your deck, hence why I only run 4 tactics. Mission Success does a similar thing. It costs 1 when you play from your battle zone in your hand. You pay the cost. If your battle member is Mana or Chloe, the member gets 5,000 power and plus 1 limit. So you can play another card from your hand. You don't get the auto flip that Word of Advice does, but it also means that you can use another tactic and it'll work. So that's kind of good. Quiet Petition does the exact same thing that Word of Advice does, except instead of giving you 5,000 power, it gives you plus 2 aura. So that's there for the inevitable aura battles that you will be fighting. And I like the breakdown this way. Sometimes I'd like it if I was running more Word of Advice instead of Mission Success. Sometimes I feel like Quiet Petition could be boosted up. But at the moment, I'm pretty pleased with how the deck runs, so I don't complain too much. All right, moving into members. I'm going to go from top down, so starting at 4 and moving on. We're going to start with 2 copies of Rapid Fire Mana. Rapid Fire Mana, when a Stardust Archery is played into the battle zone during this member's battle, I get to draw and discard. So I get to cycle, which is what I'm going to call it. Her logic drive is 3. She gets 3,000 power, and when this member attacks, if the battle opponent is in an adjacent circle, which is one of the front circles if she's in a front circle, you get to tap down one of your opponent's level zone cards. So it's really useful to starve out your opponent, particularly toward the end of the game. I run 3 copies of Emergency Evasion Mana. She says when Asher Step is played during her battles, I get to draw a card and discard a card from my hand. Her LD is 3. This member gets 5,000 power until end of battle. Then if you have 3 or more blue cards in your level zone, draw a card. This is a mono blue deck, so you will get that very often when you use her logic drive. Being able to draw extra cards in this deck is a big plus. A lot of times you might just end up luck driving your way through the entire situation, but being able to use logic drives like hers really, really helps. Finally, in the 4s, I play 4 copies of Released from the Curse Mana. Released from the Curse Mana's logic drive is really long and kind of hard to say. It says, Logic Drive 3, this member gains 3,000 power till end of turn. Then if you have 3 or more mana cards in your level zone, this member gets the ability that when it attacks, if your opponent isn't in an adjacent circle to this character, it gains a limit until end of turn. Then you may discard a card, a copy of this, from your hand, and if you do, she gains an additional 2 limit until end of battle. Okay? So, basically, you play her, you logic drive, you're going to have 3 or more manas in your level zone, hopefully, and then you can ditch her from your hand and get a total of plus 3 limit when you're attacking a non-adjacent circle. That means it gives you a full limit of 6 before any battle occurs. A lot of times in this deck, that means that your opponent will just not block her. And a lot of times that's exactly what you need, is just the notion, a surefire hit that can happen. And your opponent won't even try to keep up with her ability. But I don't often ditch the extra card. I just don't need it. Limit 4 is plenty, and then if I find I need limit later, as you can see, all of the level 4 manas in my deck give +2 limit, so I can always ditch one from hand. But it is a bonus because when you play one of these from your hand to give you limit 2, you essentially traded 1 limit for 2 limits, so you only got a net gain of 1. If you do her ability to gain the 2 limit, you actually get 2. So the net gain advantage is better. But that is my grade 4 lineup. Let's talk about threes. I run 2 copies, of Paving the Way to the Future mana. She has a continuous ability that during your turn, this member gets 1,000 power for each of your other rested members. So this is really good to have when you've been grade 1 rushing for a while, or grade 1 and 2 rushing. Her LD is cost 3. She gets a plus to soul, or to aura rather. And at the beginning of the battle step that this member attacked, choose a card in your level zone and stand it. So since you've been battling up to this point, hopefully, when she attacks, you get to untap a level of your own, giving you more options, and she gets a nice little bonus to her power because you've attacked with things before her. And I run 2 copies of Sniping Preparations mana. During this member's battle, continuously, if it's in battle with a opponent's adjacent circle member, it gets plus 2,000 power. Her LD is cost 3. She gets a soul, or an aura. I'm sorry. It's going to take me some time to get used to that. And the ability that at the beginning of the end of the battle step that this member attacked, choose a card in your level zone and stand it. Again, giving you options for your next attack. I really like this card. It's really, really useful. I might run more copies later, but at the moment I like the cocktail, so 2 is. Moving into the 2s, I actually run a lot of 2s. I run 4 copies of Good Job mana. Her ability is great. It says, if this member is in the back row, and if you have 4 or more blue cards in your level zone, all of your members gain when they attack, if the battle opponent is adjacent to it, plus 2,000 power. So you are at level 4, meaning you have 4 or more cards, blue cards in your level zone. Every person on your field gets plus 2 when attacking an adjacent battle member. So that's cool. And then her LD is 3 cost, draw a card, choose one of your members, it gets 1,000 power till the end of turn. Very straightforward kind of grade 2. And then I run 3 copies of Patient Gunpoint mana. Patient Gunpoint mana is really neat too. Her continuous ability is when she's in the back row, she gains 3,000 power. That's on both turns, so she's 9,000 power in the back row. Always good. And then her LD is 3, draw a card, choose one of your members, it gets 1,000 until end of turn. Same as the LD of the other 2. So the LD is solid because it lets you get cards into your hand, so it's as good as a luck drive, and then it also gives you a power boost. No problems there. As far as choosing which 2 to play, you look at your opponent's field. If they have things that are over 8, you want to play the sniper, the patient gunpoint mana. If you don't, then you want to play the other one. Alright, going into level 1s, which means going into Foreigners. I run 3 copies of Sleeping Smile Artemis. Sleeping Smile Artemis, when she defends against a battle opponent in an adjacent circle, you can return her to her hand, which means that it stops the attack according to current rulings. That might change, so if you guys hear about that, by all means put it in the comments. But so I have her here. My opponent plays someone in this spot and attacks her. or attacks the gate, she defends, and then she goes back into my hand, which means I don't lose her, and the gate was defended through an attack. So that's pretty cool. Then I run 4 copies of Dietary Guidance Artemis. She has a Covenant ability with mana, which is when you trance into a mana with her, you can discard a card from your hand and draw a card. So, again, cycling, making things worthwhile. I run 3 copies of Sword of Ice Mana. She has the ability that when she defends, I can discard a Tetra-Heaven card from my hand, which is every card in the deck, and draw a card. I run 4 copies of Breaking Out of Her Shell Mana. She has a Covenant ability with Artemis. When you mobilize a TransUnion over her, if you have 4 or more cards in your level zone, that member gets an additional aura for the turn. So that's really good if you know that you're going to try to end the game with a soul battle. You put these 2 together, you trance, and then you get plus an additional soul, and you get to drop and draw. Pluses all day. I run 2 copies of Stoic Pupils Mana, which is a 1,000 power mana that has, when she loses a battle while defending, you can choose a Tetra-Heaven card in your level zone and stand it. So any card in the deck. She also has a Vanguard ability, which are only active when your opponent has all undestroyed gates. That when she enters the battlefield, choose one of your opponent's members in the front row with no soul and return it to their hand. So she's useful early game, but usually you'll end up just transferring over her and not having a problem with her lack of power. But she's good in those technical situations when you're not destroying gates. Finally, I play 2 copies of Sweets of Love Mana, who's just a 6k vanilla mana. I like having a couple of the vanillas in there regardless, because 6k is a good number toward early parts of the game. And later in the game, if you're doing what you need to do, your opponent is playing anything they can to block a gate. And so a 6k might even be able to overcome a bad level 2 TransUnion. So it gives you something to work with. And that is pretty much the deck. There's not a lot of combos to talk about, per se, with the way the deck plays. It's mostly just drawing, making sure that you have the cards that you want, and playing things as correctly as you can. However, I will say, in late game, if you have less than 6 cards in your hand, either your opponent has just been wrecking you, or you've been playing sloppily, because the deck is really built to take advantage of those moments. So I hope you guys enjoyed the deck profile. I hope you guys will stay tuned for when I do the Tamaki and the Chloe decks, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching.